Welcome to the YouTube channel Awakening with Apple Wang. I am your host, Apple Wang. The goal of this channel is to investigate spiritual phenomena such as near-death experiences, deathbed visions, past-life memories, and other spiritual communications, as well as alien and UFO encounters, as to demonstrate the immortality of our souls. My intention is to bring you humanity, healing, wisdom, and answers through sharing some of the profound spiritual investigations and individual encountering experiences, thereby facilitating unconditional love and spiritual as well as universal consciousness. For more information, please visit my website www.soulregressionhypnosis.com. To book a free strategy call, please scan the code below or check out the link at the description box. Welcome to my channel Awakening with Apple Wang. I am your host, Apple Wang. This is episode 4. Today, my special guest is Dr. Beate Blumrich. Dr. Beate is a happily married Frankfurt, German medical doctor who has 3 grown adults. Dr. Beate was initially trained and specialized in anesthesiologist for 4 years and later became a general practitioner. She has over 30 years of medical practitioner experiences. Dr. Beate is well versed in her multidisciplinary modalities such as medical science, acupuncture, applied kinesiology, and hypnotherapy. She began working as a hypnotherapist 17 years ago. Her scope of work, including but not limited to trauma, conflicts, addictions, pain, fear, and personal goal coaching. She works with adults and children from 5 years old. She's also the author of Unlocking Your Inner Magic, the Power of Guided Self-Hypnosis, and roots to grow and wings to fly, empowering your children with guided self-hypnosis. Since her completion of PastLifeRegression training in 2014 and her recent graduation from Michael Newton Institute in LBLtherapy, she's now deeply involved in spiritual hypnotherapy as she transforms lives daily. Today, we're going to talk about Dr. Beate's transition from a medical practitioner to a spiritual hypnotherapist. We also covered the topic of the eternal soul and the different layers of self, the conscious mind, subconscious mind, and the soul mind. Welcome, Dr. Beate.
Thank you for your kind invitation. I feel very honored to be your interview partner today. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Beautiful. I'm just curious, I'm sure the audience would be the same. How did you actually transition from a doctor to hypnotherapist and then now your role as a guide, as a spiritual hypnotherapist?
Actually, it is for me a very consequent development because right from the beginning I have been interested in alternative medicine. I studied acupuncture during studying medicine. I've always been guided. I did not feel being guided at that point of my development, but I met people who are friends to me now who are very spiritual. And this person I met who brought me to learn acupuncture, the one person who is very important for me today now, he and his wife. And well, when you study acupuncture and other alternative medicine, you are glad to have more time with your patients. And having more time with your patients, even like up to 1 hour with one patient, you find very quickly that a lot of issues have psychological roots, psychological origins. I very early started to find a good way of treating people psychologically. So I have the luck, and I would say I've been guided there too, because I always met people who offered something to me which turned out to be perfectly for me. This was a very modern hypnotherapy, an eye level hypnotherapy where you treat your client like on your same level. I always trusted in the inner power of people. This was a step-by-step development from the body and physical aspects to the inner layers of the psyche, mental psyche and soul. So it was consequent for me to go from this outside um, point of view to the most inside part of people. So then, as one other aspect which just happened to me, I have one client. It was like 14 or 15 years ago. She brought to me a book from Brian Weiss. I did not know him up to then, and I read this book, and it was some kind of enlightening, and I started to interest in that soul aspects. And then I did some research who here in Germany is offering this way of going back to past lives. And then I found a colleague, a medical doctor, who is a member of the Michael Newton Institute, and I got my first past life regression with her, and I got my first life between life experience with her. She's a mentor to me, and that was my way of going from the outside to the inside.
That is wonderful. So you're actually being guided to what you're doing
Right,
right now.
right. I always felt like that. I did not realize it up to a certain point of consciousness when I started to realize that all things that happened in my life have been some meaningful aspects, and there was a guidance, right?
I see. It sounds like there's different events played out like different dots, and the event they were joined together.
Exactly.
Wonderful. From your medical experience and as your 30 years general practitioner to what you're doing now, specializing in past life regression and life between lives journey, how do you compare the scientific method, the medical approach versus what you're doing now, the spiritual guidance? How do they help people with their life challenges differently?
I would say every part that you mentioned has contains special aspects. I consider it as layers in a person. You have the body aspects, and you have acute and chronic aspects. And the scientific way of executing medicine means this is a very chemical point of view looking on the person. And this is our a scientific paradigm. This is the scientific way of looking on the body. And for me, acute situations like emergency situations or operations are the area of the traditional scientific way of treating people. But since I said I had the chance to have a lot of time during my treatments, like 1 hour or more with people, I found that a lot of issues are chronicle, and the chronicle aspects very often show psychological or soul aspects which find its way from the inside to the outside using the body. So the scientific way, the traditional scientific way, like I would say, stops just only considering the body aspects, which is fine for special situations. But mostly chronicle aspects are not covered by this point of view on the person. So therefore, for me, the spirituality and the the psychological approach to a person is most important, because very many people have more problems with chronicle aspects. So therefore, I would say it is not like a challenge between these different points of views. We need both.
That is wonderful. When you transited from being a medical professional into your spiritual journey, did you receive lots of doubts, questions from your colleagues and peer workers?
Most of the time, I first I received like question marks in their faces. What are you doing? You're a doctor. You come from this medical study and from this like baseline being a doctor. Here in Germany, acupuncture is accepted only since about 50 years. So even the very good old traditional ways of treating people, not only considering one part like the body part, here in Germany, I have some hard work to be accepted. So therefore, this was the first thing I got, was like, what are you doing? Where are you going? You're sure you want to do that? This does not lead to nowhere, and things like that. So I had to be very strong to stand to what I was doing. But even then, I've been guided, because I met people like having gotten these trainings. They were my teachers. They have been to that and have gone through that. So I felt very supported by them. And I found more and more, especially during I would say during the last 10 or 15 years, that even traditional doctors open up for other aspects.
So we're seeing some positive changes, the shift from mainstream, the conscious mind reasoning, logical practice, and move towards more emotional, energetic, and psychological spiritual practice. This concept about the subconscious and the superconscious mind, would you be able to share with the audience what your interpretation is? The different
Right.
layers of our mind.
We make a difference between consciousness, subconsciousness, and say the soul consciousness. In Germany, we say we have a word for like consciousness, subconsciousness, and super or over, like being above consciousness. Right. Consciousness is, it makes just a very tiny little part in the brain. Modern brain research shows that in every second of your life, the brain works with about 50 bits of conscious aspects. So during the same second, these subconscious aspects are operated with about 50 million bits. So everything that is like inside of your body in this subconscious way makes most of you. So you can consciousness, I would say, just to bring it down to like the most important point, consciousness is the possibility of a person not only to think, to act, or to feel, but to think about his thinking, acting, and feeling. It's the way of changing the point of view and watching from a conscious aspect on your feelings, emotions, thoughts, and your body aspects. Subconsciousness is like the subconsciousness stores your whole experience from the maturity of the brain. Like the science says that the brain is mature enough to store every memory from 5 months on. But this is the subconsciousness, which is linked to the brain. So the brain inside your head and inside this body. And you can say the subconscious memories can be reactivated from that part of your life. So if something happened when you've been a baby of 6 months, it is possible to find this memory in your subconsciousness. And furthermore, the subconsciousness is responsible for all this this body activity, like your heartbeat, your breathing, like your immune system, the hormonal systems, digestion, and everything. So the science says we have consciousness and subconsciousness. If it was only like this is the whole person, I would say this is very sad, because in this soul consciousness, when you go deeper, in a deeper layer, you have the soul. The soul is a different entity which enters this body mind community, I would say. And the soul aspects, the soul memory, goes like to your very beginning of your soul being a soul. So we do not end with a scientific concept of you can reach experiences down to 6 months, for example. We can watch and reach down and touch down to your whole soul experiences from the very beginning of your soul. And this is the inner core of oneself. So we have a kind of cooperation between the body, mind aspects of the brain, and with all that stuff of hormones, emotions, which are caused by biochemical processes, and the cooperation between this aspect and the deeper layers of the subconsciousness and the deepest layer of the soul consciousness.
Understanding what you're saying, that so all the memories that is go back before 5 months time, those memories experience are stored in the subconscious mind.
Well, I would say, like, referring to the scientific aspects, I should say no. Referring to the spiritual point of view, I would say the subconsciousness is like, we use hypnosis as a means to communicate even with the soul, and going further back to more than 5 months, to the time of being in the uterus, or other lifetimes. So scientifically, I would say you only can go down to 5 months, but there exists other sciences which show that the spirit memory, the spiritual, the memory of your soul is far further below to all your soul lifetimes.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Now, please allow me to share a little bit about myself. As a professional working in the field of helping people, I have an advanced diploma in clinical hypnotherapy and psychotherapy. I'm also specifically trained in PastLifeRegression, quantum healing hypnosis technique, and the life between life therapy. With this profound technique that I have learned, I have been helping many of my clients, particularly in the area of relationship healing and pain management. Hypnotherapy is a rapid transformational technology using the hypnotic arts and sciences that is designed with the purpose to create positive changes and therapeutic effects. This safe and natural process normally begins with deep relaxation, often evolves with guided imagery and suggestions. Through identifying the root cause of a challenge, it helps to break old, destructive, and even harmful patterns and habits. Thus, facilitate subconscious relearning. The hypnotic state is a spontaneous process that happens in our lives all the time. Some are concerned about losing control or being manipulated. Such myths and misconceptions are due to the lack of proper understanding about this natural process. To learn more about hypnotherapy and what I do, please visit my website www.soulregressionhypnosis.com. You're also very welcome to book a free initial strategy call with me. Scan the code or check out the booking link at the show notes. Thank you. You are saying scientifically, based on what's the current scientific ability, that we can only prove that the human body is capable to memorize stuff that happened from 5 months old forward.
Right.
So if anything that scientifically that I cannot prove, that I definitely cannot remember what happened when I was a fetus in my mom's body. So if something, the information pops up in a session, we consider that as a spiritual soul memory.
Right, that's right. Wonderful, exactly. I just wanted to add there exists research. It is like the parallel or parascientific way of considering these aspects you mentioned, right? But there is a lot of research which can show that what you said is totally right, that we have these soul memories we can approach in, well, therefore you need the subconsciousness, because we it pops up in trance states which are very deep and which bypass the critical factor of the conscious mind, and which bypass the conscious capacities.
When you say soul memory, and I also mentioned that word, whether it's subconscious memory or soul memory, are they different things? Are they same things? Is the soul part of this human body?
To me, and referring to my trainings and referring to my studying that aspects, the soul is an own entity that enters the body. And like, as I said before, it is like a cooperation of the soul with this body. It's like inhabiting a body. And it is for us, like from the spiritual point of view, the soul is eternal and it goes down to special bodies and leaves the body after its death. And it takes with itself the soul memory. But you have inside this very special body it inhabits, you have this conscious and subconscious memories which belong only to this one body.
You mentioned that the soul enters the body.
Right.
Is the soul part of the body? Or what's the really relationship of a soul and a body?
The soul is an intelligent energy. It can only be explained by quantum physics. The body is traditional physical and chemical thing. And when the soul, with its physical possibilities or capabilities, enters the body, it connects with this biophysical, biochemical thing which we call body. So for one lifetime, they belong together, but the soul, in that way, we can say it's a part of the body during one lifetime. But being this quantum physically gifted or capable energy, it can leave and move back into the body even during the lifetime. So therefore, we have to take another point of view on the soul. It belongs together for one lifetime, but the soul is able. It is not like going into the body from the beginning and leaving after death. It is able to leave the body during dreams, during whenever it likes or whenever it wishes or feels like going out of the body. Therefore, it is not a fixed connection. It is a connection, but it's more like a cooperation, I would say.
Interesting. So the soul does not necessarily stays with the body all the time.
Right. We know from spiritual research and reincarnation research that up to 4 or 5 years, the soul very often leaves the body and goes back to the body. So I don't know if you once watched children playing, being in this very moment of playing, being very absent-minded, and you ask a question, you do not get an answer. So those are moments where, for example, you can even watch that there is a body which is living, which is doing something, but it is kind of absent. So the soul very often during this time of very early childhood goes back to the spirit world, for example, and gets into contact with other spirits and gets some reaffirmation of aspects and does own stuff, I would say, and coming back to the body of the kid, and then the kid is right in this very moment you can talk again and then have a reaction of the kid. Yeah, for example.
That is interesting. So you're saying that when the child, I'm assuming this might happen to adults as well. So somebody, when their mind is absent, that means the soul has temporarily left the body and doing something else, went to a different place.
It may be. I do not know exactly if all the time, if a person is absent-minded, something like that happens. I don't know, but well, yeah, I would say very often that's a good explanation. And another thing, for example, when a person gets very close to passing, to dying, we like everyone who has some experience with going this way, as a doctor or as a therapist, to the very very end, there is one point where you have the feeling of there is no soul inside the body anymore. So the people are only their body and they react bodily, but you can watch them in the eye and just see there is something missing. And a lot of people say this, like relatives of passing people say, I don't know, he's not there anymore or she's not there anymore. So I would say we know from the spiritual research that the soul, not always, but often leaves the body before the body has died, for example. It does not leave, like stay outside for the whole time, but for example to avoid pain, to feel the pain, or just it gets this kind of like in the beginning of the lifetime, I said the soul leaves the body, goes in and out and in and out, and in the end of the lifetime the soul starts to do this again, to go in and out and in and out, and maybe to reaffirm that this is okay, that the body's dying now, to go back to the spirit, to get some help to cope with that situation, for example. That's very interesting because you have a kind of feeling of or an awareness of there's something missing. The soul is not inside anymore. I
It's
found this
amazing.
when my own father-in-law died. I had this very very big feeling of, okay, the body is still alive, but I cannot feel that the soul is inside anymore. And my husband felt the same when we sat at the bedside of my father-in-law. Yeah. And I got this like like this can be observed, and I get this as said by many people who who experience relative dying.
Interesting. I actually have a recent a client story that in her case she feels really upset about her auntie without mentioning the name. The auntie has become a different person. So she's
Right.
kind of under care of others, but she's has absolutely lost her personality. She
Right.
was funny, entertaining, and all very engaging, very creative. Because life events strike her, and she no longer the same. So I'm assuming this may be the case that the soul somewhat has left the body.
Maybe it may be, this may be one reason. Another reason could be that she kind of wanted to make this experience. So it may be that the soul still is inside and wants to experience this situation. This it is not only to be said that when people become very different, that this is a sign for, okay, okay, I only have a body without a soul inside. I would say no. I would say most of the time it is a special experience the soul wants to make. And I can understand, I can see the point that a relative or a, yeah, you said it's an auntie of your client or a friend.
Yes.
It is very strange and very hard to explain that something like that could happen. But as a soul, we very often want to make very strange experiences. So therefore, this may be another good explanation. How do people react when I change totally change my being, for example, could be a very interesting situation for a soul to experience.
I see, that makes sense. In my experience working with these clients, what I have discovered is I'm sensing there's a lesson for the auntie to behave like that or to act like that. In a way, it seems like to activating a lesson for my clients to learn.
Right. For example, it may not be only the experience the soul is seeking for itself, but maybe for another person, for another dear soul friend, for example. So yeah, right, exactly.
Because the person is now missing the loss of the original, the previous auntie. Now she's not the same person anymore. She's kind of, really experiencing the grief over a dear auntie. And in the
And
session,
maybe she had to. Oh, sorry.
yes,
Yeah, maybe when you say it might be a lesson for your client. Maybe it has something to do with lost. Maybe she had to learn. She has to learn how to cope with losing a person.
that is a part of the learning curve that pops up in the session. One other important aspect for her session is to accept people as they are. And
All right, another possibility, right? Yeah,
she was
yeah,
trying
very
very
interesting.
she was trying very hard to help her and hoping by her helping her auntie hard, the auntie would return to what she was. But she isn't, and she's setting this expectation. Hey, auntie, you need to work harder, to become who you were before.
Yeah,
But she isn't.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that just
right.
upsets
Makes
her
totally
more.
makes sense, right? Yeah. It
Yeah.
would not help if she got the person she has been, but the lesson is you, my niece, you have to learn, accept that I'm a different person now, right? Makes sense. I
Yeah.
have
And
experiences like that as well. and experiences with loss. I remember when you talk about that, I remember that I, as an emergency doctor, I'd been pregnant with my second child during that time, and it was a very hard experience for me because I had to go to a family who had this sudden childhood death with a 3 weeks old baby. And at that time, I have not been trained with or I have not I have not gotten yet this spiritual training. So it was very hard for me being pregnant, going there and having to work with a family and having to examine the baby and all that thing. But later, when I got my spiritual training as a spiritual hypnotherapist, I re um, how could you say, I relearned that this situation had something to do with the soul of the baby wanting to teach the mother, letting loose, letting go, being able to cope with grief and being able to cope with loss. So I had the luck or the chance, the possibility to work with that family later. And we found out that this was the explanation why this baby came to life and passed by very, very early. And this was a very peaceful explanation because my client did very well and could even, people always like to have explanations for things that happen to them, for very, very serious things, for things like cancer, like very serious diseases or loss or big, big traumatic experiences. And from that very high point of view, this spiritual point of view, you find explanations that like help people to get into peace with this experience. And that was very, very, yeah, very, a very peaceful thing and very nice to to see. Yeah.
This program is produced by Zentopia Healing and Soul Regression Hypnosis, with a mission to help individuals to awaken from their daily mundane lives. If you enjoy the show, your considerate donation is graciously welcomed. Please scan the code below for donation or check out the link at the show note. Like it, subscribe it, and please share it with your friends. You're also very welcome to leave a review. All of your support is sincerely appreciated. Wonderful stories. I want to go back to the soul information a little bit. When you say the soul enters the body, does that mean everybody has a soul?
To me, um, yes, I would say I'm not. I did not read all the books. I know there exists like convictions. Do you say people? Some people are convinced that people may exist without a soul. There may be like, I don't know, how do you say, zombies? I don't know. There is some literature which treats these aspects. I did not read a lot of that stuff because for me it's very, very, very spooky. I would say, yes, people who live here on this earth plane have a soul, and the soul can move in and out. And I did not meet any person who did not have a soul or gave the feeling to me that there is no soul inside. I cannot say that this cannot be possible. Maybe it's possible, but or like for God's sake, I don't know, I would not like to meet a person feeling that there's no soul inside. Maybe it's a different soul. Maybe it's a soul that is not very used to incarnating on this earth plane. This is something different. There are souls who decide to incarnate in other on other planets, and sometimes then they decide to incarnate on the earth plane, and that may be a very strange experience, meeting a person who has a soul which feels not like you're very used to that kind of soul. And that may be very strange and may be a feeling of what person is this? Does he have a soul or not? And maybe it's a different soul. So this to me makes more sense than the concept or the imagination of the possibility of a body without a soul. But I'm not a scientist in that way.
Interesting. Based on my experience, I'd agree that every physical body, there is the soul energy, which we call that the
Yeah,
intelligent energy, which is part of the
right.
universal consciousness. As everything we do or we think, we act, we speak, the body movement, it's all because there's a thinking, there's an idea, there's a want, there's a desire, there's an emotion. And this all
Right.
manifestations, physical expression of universal consciousness.
Exactly. Agree with that totally. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I feel as well. Right.
When you mentioned that the soul enters the body, is there a specific time when they first enter the body? Did it all happen before birth?
Um, Right. I can only refer to my trainings and the research, which is done by reincarnation science. And yeah, we know that usually during the third and fourth month, the soul, most of the time between this third or fourth month of pregnancy, the soul enters the body. Right. Sometimes I had a client who said um, that her soul entered even the four-cell state. She was so curious to um, to witness the whole development of the body. She entered these four little cells and said, "That's so interesting, and I'm not going to leave this developing body during the whole pregnancy." There was one client I had that was very interesting. That was very early. Sometimes the soul enters later than the fourth month, but normally between the third and the fourth month is the time when the soul enters. But then it decides if it stays permanently or if it goes in and out during that time and up to the early childhood, as I said before. It's interesting, isn't it? I
I
like
know.
that. Well, like that idea very much.
Yeah, my experience, I had a client who came to the baby, came inside the tummy, but she did not integrate. She was just as a form of energy spirit, observing the fetus in the mom, and she
Right.
entered only before birth.
Ah, right.
Yes, so that's also very interesting. And from Dolores Cannon's books, there was one day I listened that part, but some so they actually enter after the birth, which is I have not encountered that. So I'd be really excited, curious to see such case if possible.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of research to be done. It's so interesting. I did not have a client who told me that, but I can imagine. Sure, makes sense as well. Maybe as an explanation, I don't know, maybe the soul had a very stressful in another body, in another lifetime, a very traumatic or stressful birth to experience, and maybe the soul said, okay, I'm not willing to go through this again. Maybe I enter the body after all that like stressful stuff of birth. Maybe.
Yeah, we learn so much from having all these spiritual sessions.
Right,
It is totally expanding our mind, the physical capacity.
right. It is it has been for myself when I had my first LBL life between lives experience. um, I felt it was 2.5 hours of a session. And we do not in such trance states, those are not out of body experiences. We do not leave the body with 100% of our soul energy during such a session, but we leave the body in this very, very deep hypnotic trance states. We leave with our soul energy, like according to the deepness of the trance, but up to 60 to 80% of our soul energy. So after that session, when my therapist helped me to reintegrate with my body, I felt my body was like I had to even consciously, with willing force, I had to move my fingers. I was not able to move anymore. So it's a very, very interesting experience. And well, it is something different to an, as I said, to an out-of-body experience, and even different to being dead and leaving a dead body. But we get very, very close to this experience the soul makes in an out-of-body experience, or in a situation of the body died and the soul leaves. So we can how could I explain? It's interesting. The consciousness, even if you go to a very deep, deep state of trance, the consciousness is always aware of what's happening. It's not like a narcosis. I said I was an anesthesiologist, so therefore a narcosis state is another state. It's not narcosis, it's hypnosis. And in hypnosis, the consciousness always stays aware of what's happening, but does not, or should not. Most of the time we have to help the client to not to interfere with what's happening, or trying to explain or whatever. But most of the time in these very deep trance states, it is very close to an out-of-body experience, and your consciousness is always witnessing what's happening. So it's an interesting state, and it's very, 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 like as you said, the consciousness is widening and widening and widening. You widen you enlarge in your awareness of things that are happening in that moment.
Fascinating experience. So the conscious mind will always remain aware, knowing what's happening.
Right. Yeah.
So did your session helps you to understand everything happens for a reason?
Yes. It was not that this session alone was my enlightening moment, because before I read a lot of books, which was like, I was telling you that I got this book from Brian Weiss, and during the same time, my husband, who is architect normally, but he wanted to, in the beginning, he wanted to be a teacher for religion and physics. And he was very interesting in quantum physics, and he read a lot about quantum physics. And I was reading a lot about hypnotherapy and spirituality and philosophy. And I don't know, we talked through nights about all that stuff. And we helped each other to develop a different point of view on ourselves, on these soul aspects. And so therefore, when I got my first LBL session, my first LBL experience, I already came to a point of, well, things are totally different. Things make sense only from this very high point of view. But yes, in this LBL experience, we have the possibility to bring in, for example, personal conflicts or personal trauma. And you learn to look on that from this high point of view. And you find that you, yourself, your soul, my soul, made the decision to have this experience, to make some progress in my personal soul development. So therefore, yes, I had I had a traumatic childhood with a mother who was an alcoholic and died, and I was very young. And later on, I had a very big conflict with a partner, a professional partner I was working with. I had a big struggle, which ended up with a process, and I lost a lot of money, and that was very traumatic as well. And in this session, I brought in all that aspects, and I wanted to find explanations. No, not all. That's not right. Especially this with this medical partner, my professional partner, because the stuff with my mom I always coped with during my hypnotherapy training before. But yeah, I found a very clear reason why I wanted to experience this, what I wanted to learn. And that was the point when I was able to let loose of it, because I got the experience, I understood the experience, and I really could energetically and in every aspect get rid of it, get loose of it. So yeah, exactly. I found reasons for all those serious experiences we suffer from during our lifetimes, right?
So you're saying that there's a lesson for us to learn, and did we actually agree to do those, to experience those events before we came here? Then did we
Ah, right.
plan
Okay.
those
Thank you.
events?
Exactly. We do. We totally do. I have to be, as a doctor and as a therapist, I have to be very careful with this sentence. I'm very careful saying this sentence to a person where I have the sensation of he or she is not on that point of understanding. So I carefully ask or try to find out how this person up to that moment found its own explanations for what's happening. For example, there is like war experience. We all have, or I suppose we all have had lives where we experienced suffering during wars or nature catastrophes, or very serious experiences. And when I'm talking, I live in Germany. We have this German war, the Second World War, with this big like shame on Hitler and everything. And here in Germany, when I have clients, it is not seldom, it is very often that I meet people who in an LBL session find themselves as a Jew during the Second World War. If I found this person, when we're talking about that, an LBL session may be a possibility to cope with problems during this lifetime. When I found this person is mature enough with his own explanations and point of views, it's no problem to say or to let this person find out that he agreed to even being killed in a concentration camp, right? But I would never say this to a person I do not know, and I never felt before that this person could cope with a sentence like that,
I
We
understand.
know that it is, we agree, we know, as spiritual therapists, we know that it is like that, but you have to be very careful who you are talking about, that stuff, and how you're talking, or how the person approaches to that.
Yes, I have found that. I mean, I don't deal with people, female who are being raped. And in particular, some of these therapists that I have spoken with, they wouldn't accept this when I say everything happens for a reason. They wouldn't want to accept that. You need to give them something more sweeter rather than
Exactly.
Telling them the brutal truth. And it doesn't really make much sense for them to say, I actually planned for someone in my next incarnation, I'm going to be raped. It
Who would
absolutely makes no
believe
sense.
that? Right, right,
Yeah.
right. And then there is this aspect of guilt as well. If a person does not reach this consciousness of spirituality or this level, which is not like I'm not looking from a higher point of view on down to people. This is not what I do, but this is learning and developing and getting to this consciousness that there is a bigger, a universal sense for all that stuff. When I work with people and I find that they are not able to take in this point of view, they would say, okay, you're saying to me I'm guilty for being raped or what? So this you could not do that. But therefore it is a very tricky thing. You need not talk about these aspects of well, you agree to what you've been through during this lifetime. It is not necessarily to be said to the client.
We really have to be very careful or strategic when we communicate with the clients and explain it in a way that they understand, in a way that we can really help them.
Right, in the pre-talk, and I had this sometimes that I did not have to talk about, yeah, we plan our lives. So, but when the person during his LBL session gets to the point of getting into contact with higher entities, with a soul guide, for example, and the soul guide says to the person, okay, looking from this high point of view to your actual lifetime, then they just simply make the experience that they planned that all that things. And this is like a smoother way of getting to know this aspect. And then the people can cope with it and accept that they agreed with what was happening, what is happening now. Yeah, smoother.
Amazing learning for every soul, I suppose, from all the stories.
Yeah, it is. Definitely. Thank you.
That is wonderful. So how can the audience contact you, or how can they get to your books?
Well, most of the clients
I'll put
contact
it
me
down
via
under the screen so it's here so the audience can see it.
my website. It is very nice if people contact me via internet, website, and email, and my phone number. Although I prefer email, especially if people contact me in English, it's easier for me to read and react when they contact me via email.
Wonderful. And your books are available from your website?
Yes, they are. I have a link, or I think I have a picture on my books on my website, but they're only available in German. They are not translated to English, so it's a pity, but they're not. They're only in German.
Well, you never know one day.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beate, for coming to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your expertise in spiritual hypnotherapy.